Hey guys, it's time for our new book. You guys have been doing a lot of building background to look at the time period of Lions of Little Rock, and now it's time for us to actually dive into the book and find out what this book is all about. Remember, this is historical fiction, so while you've been studying the time period in history when this book was written or the plot takes place, remember that it is still fiction. So it is based on things that happen in history, but the plot itself is made up. All right, so let's get started. The first chapter is the high dive. You guys should have seen your questions that you need to be able to answer once you're done with this chapter. So there's really some basic questions for the first chapter. So just remember that those are things that are just going to help you really pay attention to the main character, the setting, and what's happening in the very beginning of the story. So here we go. Chapter 1, the high dive. I talk a lot, just not out loud where anyone can hear. At least I used to be that way. I'm no chatterbox now, but if you stop me on the street and ask me directions to the zoo, I'll answer you. Probably, if you're nice. I might even tell you a couple of different ways to get there. I guess I've learned it's not enough to just think of things. You have to say them too, because all the words in the world don't do much good if they're just rattling around in your head. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand me and how I've changed, I need to go back to 1958. It was a beautiful day in September, and I was standing on the top of a diving board. The blue sky was reflected in the water below. The whiteboard felt scratchy under my feet, and the smell of hot dogs wafted up from the snack stand. It was a perfect summer day, the kind you see in the movies, and I was positive I was going to throw up. You see, it wasn't just any high dive. Oh no, it was a super huge 5-meter high platform diving board. The tallest at Fair Park Swimming Pool, probably the highest in all of Little Rock. It might have been the highest in all of Arkansas, which wouldn't have been a problem if I hadn't been afraid of heights, but I was. Sally McDaniels had told me she was going to jump off and asked me if I wanted to come too. Everyone over the age of 10 had already jumped off the board a dozen times that summer, except for me, and I was practically 13. It was easier to nod than say no, so there I was. Sally was waiting behind me on the ladder, blonde and blue-eyed. She wore a pink suit, the exact color of her toenails. Sally wasn't very pretty, but no one ever noticed because she acted like she was. "Are you all right?" she asked. No, of course I wasn't all right. I wasn't sick or anything, but I was standing perfectly still, frozen as a popsicle, counting prime numbers in my head. A prime number is a number that can only be divided by itself and 1. There are 25 of them under 100, and reciting them sure does help me when I'm nervous. Go ahead and jump, said Sally. I didn't move. A plane flew across the sky. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. I wish I were a stork and could fly away, or a flamingo, or a penguin. Except I didn't think they flew. Marley, Sally said, there's a bunch of people behind us. I hated holding them up, so I stepped toward the edge of the platform. 13, 17, 19, 23. But then I got dizzy and fell to my knees. Come on, cried the boy on the ladder behind Sally. Hurry up and jump. I shook my head and clutched the board. 29, 31, 37, 41. It didn't work. I wasn't ever letting go. Sally laughed. She said she was really going to do it this time. I squeezed my eyes together and kept counting. 43, 47, 53. Isn't that Judy Nesbitt's little sister, someone said? It must have only been a minute or two, but I got all the way to 97 before I felt Judy's hand on my shoulder. Marley, she said quietly, come on down. I already bought a Coke and a payday. We can share them on the way home. I nodded but didn't move. Open your eyes, Judy commanded. I did. Not that I always do what my sister says, but well, I guess I usually do. In any case, when I saw my sister's clear brown eyes looking at me, I felt much better. She was 16 and going into the 11th grade. I could talk to my sister. She was smart and calm and reasonable. Do you want me to hold your hand on the way down the ladder? Judy asked. I nodded again. It was embarrassing, but I didn't think I could do it on my own. Once I felt her palm on mine, it only took a minute for us to walk our way down together. What a baby, said the boy who had been behind me as he brushed past us to climb up again. Sally laughed, and I knew they were right. I was a baby. Come on, said Judy. She picked up her book and her bag from the lounge chair where she'd been reading. See you at school tomorrow, said her friend Margaret. See you, Judy replied, waving goodbye. Judy hadn't even gotten her hair wet. She recently cut it into a short bob and wore it pulled back in with a ribbon. My hair was the same brown color as my sister's, but it was long and wavy, and sometimes I still wore it in braids. Sally said I looked like Heidi. But I didn't care. I liked Heidi. She had that nice grandpa and her friend with all those goats. Goats are okay, but what I really love are wild animals, like the ones you find at the zoo. The Little Rock Zoo was right across the street from the swimming pool. In the gate and down the hill, I knew the lions were pacing in their cages. At night, Judy and I listened to them roar, but during the day, they were quiet like me. Judy and I sat on the wall by the zoo entrance as we shared a candy bar and a Coke. Sorry, I said. I ruined our last day at the pool before school started again. Judy sighed. Why are you even friends with Sally McDaniels? I shrugged. Sally and I have been friends ever since we were 5, and she pushed me off the slide at the park. She likes to boss you around, Judy said. That was true, but she was also familiar, and I like familiar. You need to find a friend you have something in common with, said Judy. Someone who likes to do the same things you do. That's what I stopped listening. I knew all her advice by heart. I needed to find someone who was honest and friendly and nice and knew all the things I was supposed to meet. I knew all the ways I was supposed to meet this imaginary friend too. Just say hello, ask someone a question, give a compliment. Maybe it would work if I could ever figure out the right words. I know it sounds odd, but I much prefer numbers to words. In math, you always get the same answer, no matter how you do the problem. But with words, blue can be 1,000 different shades. 2 is always 2. I like that. Judy finally finished lecturing, and I said, It's easier to put up with Sally. Sometimes she's really nice. Yeah, said Judy. Sometimes. And that's the end of chapter 1.